What's up, everybody? We're going to jump in here in just a second. We got to link in our folks over on Twitter and on Facebook. Give me just one second. All right. See some people starting to jump in here. And we are live. Welcome into the Falcons Podcast with me, your host, Garrett Chapman. Very excited to jump in here, even if the topics aren't necessarily the best of nature. It's not a victory podcast like we had last week. This is somehow much worse than what we saw here in week one. Falcons lose 30-0 in what is probably one of the most frustrating football games that I've seen in the Raheem Morris era. You can point to what this team was against the Denver Broncos. You can look at what this team was down the stretch of last season. You can look at a lot of different things. And point-wise, that Broncos game was worse. You can look at the fourth quarter of that Minnesota Vikings game. You can say, oh, that one was worse. No, I will say that Sunday's loss to the Carolina Panthers was the worst loss of the Raheem Morris era. And we've already started to see some moves happen. We've already seen the staff started to shake up a little bit, and we've seen kind of the consequences of performances like that. But look, I wish I could be on better terms. I wish I could be coming to you with better news, but this is where we are. And we're going to discuss all of it. So give me a follow at GChapATL on Twitter if you're over there. Big thank you to all our folks over on Twitter. We already have some folks jumping in there on there. If you're on YouTube, make sure to like the video. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast. Make sure to get in on all this Falcons discussion. But tonight we're going to dig into these reactions to week 3, what we saw on Sunday. We'll discuss some of the issues that the offense is having, at least my perspective of these issues. Ultimately, what the team is doing to fix these issues. And then I'm also going to take your questions. So drop those into the comments. We're going to get to them as I can. I'm sure there are a lot of comments and questions and concerns about where this team stands right now. But look, this team's 1-2. It's just not been good enough so far. I mean, week 2 was a blip on the radar, it seems. But these are the ebbs and flows of this season, and the Falcons, it's a turning point. That's what I've said, basically just coming out of this game. We're going to learn a lot about this team based off of how they respond to what happened on Sunday. And you saw the way the team responded on Sunday to what they did the week before, and it wasn't good enough. And I think ultimately that's the look of a team who was unprepared. And that's not a good thing moving into the rest of the season. And just with the youth on this team, it's just a little worrisome. But this is the Falcons Podcast with Garrett Chapman. I see some people are starting to jump in. Thank you. Welcome. I'm going to dig into this. I'm just going to jump right in because the offense itself is dreadful. And I'm going to flash some graphics here, some graphics that I saw on Twitter just on Sunday afternoon after the game, on Monday, and then ultimately today on Tuesday as we're filming this podcast, or we're coming to you live with it. And I'll bring those to you here as we go. But in week 1, this team wasn't able to run the ball. In weeks 1 and 2, the Falcons struggled with the red zone offense. Unfortunately, this wasn't a problem in week 3, but only because they didn't get past the Panthers' 30-yard line. In all 3 weeks, Falcons struggle getting play calls in. They're routinely forced to burn timeouts, take pre-snap penalties coming out of said timeouts. It flared up again on Sunday. This time it's early in the game. It's a 3rd and 1 on the second possession of the game, and come out of a timeout, which I don't know why you don't just run the play in the first place. You have the setup that made sense, and Tyler Rozier was in the backfield, and the personnel grouping was weird. And if you look at it, Jake Matthews was actually lined up on the opposite side, so he was playing far right tackle alongside of Wilkinson, who is playing right tackle. But they called the timeout, and then they struggle with the personnel grouping, and they incur a delay of game. So you wasted a timeout, and you took a penalty. This was the same thing that happened last week. You had an identical thing happen in the first possession of the game. You're down on the goal line, and Penix and Robinson were unable to get the play in with the offense in the red zone. Forced a timeout. Coming out of the timeout, you get a false start on Jake Matthews because the ball, the game clock, or the play clock, rolls so far down that Jake Matthews is basically trying to jumpstart what's going to happen, and he gets flagged for the false start. The offense, it has some problems. We're going to talk a little bit about what the team is doing about it here in a little bit. But this unit ranks 31st in scoring offense. 14 points per game right now. You have 1 touchdown in your last 2 games. You struggle in the red zone. You're 13th in total offense, which is fine. It's just kind of empty calories. It's like eating a piece of chocolate cake after dinner. It's completely and totally empty calories. You're 27th in EPA per play. You're 13th in EPA per rush, which is supposed to be the strong point of this team. You're 28th in EPA per pass. And ultimately, this is a game where the defense plays well, but the offense dooms them. I mean, this game finishes 30-0, and they're going to get knocked for 30 points and allowing 30 points, the defense is. But it was 10-0 at halftime. 10-0 at halftime. And the Falcons come out and they give you a pick 6 on the opening drive. And then after that, you have another interception, you have a turnover on downs, and you have a fumble. And the Panthers are starting drives on their own on the Falcons' 45-yard line, the Falcons' 30-yard line, and the Falcons' 44-yard line. Surprisingly to nobody, all 3 of those drives ended in points for the Panthers. There's no defense that can survive like that. I don't care if you're the 85 Bears. If you're starting all of your possessions in an entire half on your portion of the field, you're going to give up points. And that's why this score looks so lopsided. And even then, we can get into some of the other issues with special teams, where special teams issues continued to flare up. And that's one of those really frustrating points. And let's get back into the offense here in just a second. Let's talk about the special teams issue, because we're just talking about something that I feel like it's not the sole reason, obviously, because the offense is going to take a lot of the attention, but it's very symbolic of the way Atlanta's lack of execution across the board dooms them in this game. You look at what Parker Romo does. He misses 2 kicks. You have the strong opening drive. Parker Romo sails a kick and just a hideous kick. He missed so badly to the right. So badly. And then he comes back in later in the half, and he misses it to the left this time. And Raheem Morris said it after the game. He said it on Monday. It's deflating. It's deflating. And it's to the point where you have a young quarterback who now thinks, and now really he knows that he has to be perfect. He's got to be perfect. And it's a guy who I already feel was feeling apprehensive. It just took the wind out of the sails of this team. But he's not alone. The special teams issues are continuing. They looked great in week 2. They struggled in week 1. They gave up the long kickoff return. They had a punt that sailed, and then the punt goes long. And then they ended up the Bucs return at like 50 yards, and it gets them on the board. In this game, you have Ray McLeod getting tackled by Billy Bowman in a punt return. Ray McLeod was the guy fielding the punt, folks. He fielded the punt. His own teammate tackled him. In kickoff return, Nathan Carter, he misjudges a kickoff. He backpedals and slips. And the ball, because it goes from the landing zone, which is in between the goal line and the 20, it lands in there, or it's touched in there, and then he goes back into the red zone, the end zone, and he kneels it down. They start on the 20-yard line. If he lets the ball go through, because it's going to go through the end zone, then they get to start the ball on the 35-yard line. That's a 15-yard difference. Later in the half, Natrone Brooks comes in, I'm assuming because Nathan Carter was benched. He misreads a kick, and it's a knuckleballing kick, and credit to the Panthers kicker. He did a really good job of this. He misreads this kick, and because of that, he has to turn around and go get the football, and then the Falcons are starting on the 10-yard line. Bradley Pinion, he mishits a punt badly, and it goes just 25 yards. The Panthers get the ball on the 31-yard line. They don't get anything on this possession, but this is coming right before the end of the half. So they punt the ball back to the Atlanta Falcons after a 3-and-out. And because Bradley Pinion's punt was so bad, the Falcons now have to start on their own 20-yard line. And they have to go to the length of the field. And who knows? Maybe if they don't burn the timeout earlier in the half, it's a nullified point, and maybe they can get Parker Romo some confidence, and maybe he can make a kick at the end of the half, and the game's 10-3 going into halftime. That's a different football game, and it feels completely different than Darnell Mooney receiving a pass and then just going down and then just walking into the locker room. It's just a perfect example of all the things that have gone wrong. And it's just a lack of execution. It's dropped passes. It's vanilla play calling. And let's talk about that. Because Zach Robinson's getting a lot of blame. And I think to a lot of to an extent, I think all of it is accurate. I feel like to some extent, they're tipping their pitches right now. And PFF went through and did this. And I saw this on social media. I don't remember who tweeted it, but 93% of the Falcons' shotgun formations are passes. 93% tells me that, okay, you're going to line up in shotgun. I don't need to defend the run. Great. I can just drop back into coverage. That's not a way to help a young quarterback. I say you're fourth lowest in play action rate in the NFL. That's not a great way to help a young quarterback, especially when you have a backfield that features Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier. Why isn't this being utilized? You have one pass attempt all season from under center. You've only run 13 plays. That's a separate issue entirely. But that's a 92% run rate from when you're coming out under center. So if the Falcons come under center, don't have to worry about the pass. Just sell out and go get the run. And then the pistol formation, which I think ultimately is getting a little too much hate from folks, specifically on Twitter. But there's a 70% run rate out of the pistol formation. Like, I understand, like, you want to make things simple for a young quarterback, but it feels like these pre-snap setups are basically just telling the defense exactly what's about to happen. Is it a run? Is it a pass? I don't know. Let's look at their formation and find out. That's not good enough. And Zach Robinson has to be better. He has to be better. And ultimately, whether it's him or if it's Michael Penix, he struggled. Penix did. This was his worst game. This was by far his worst game as a pro. I mean, let's look at one of these things right here. This is one of my first graphics. And look, the numbers are bad. Ben Baldwin does a very good job. I think he's Computer Cowboy on Twitter. He has a good idea to kind of contextualize what we're looking at here. All right, so you can see from right here, his efficiency is just dreadful. And you see the line going right through. That's kind of your median point, your average point. His efficiency numbers are dreadful. This is dreadful. He's right there with Tua, a guy in Miami who's leading debatably the worst team in the NFL right now, an offense that's about to get their head coach fired. Bo Nix, similarly young quarterback, but you can see basically just from the on the bottom you have the PFF grade, and on the left it's an EPA per play, so passes, rushes, and penalties and everything else. So everything else that's measured with EPA. It's not good. This is really good. It's really not good. His efficiency is struggling right now. It's really not good. And in week 3, he completes 18 of 36 passes, 172 yards, no touchdowns, and 2 back-breaking interceptions, including a pick six, right out of the half. He looks hesitant. He looks like he's struggling to connect with his wideouts, which, I mean, leads to another decision that the Falcons made earlier this week. And I think that level of aggression and confidence that we saw from him last year is almost non-existent. I mean, he's checking the ball down a lot. And ultimately, when he is throwing the ball deep, he's missing. And you see situations where he's sailing the ball, he's throwing it high, sometimes he's throwing it low. Like, it's not good for Michael Penix. And I think week 2, you saw this too, but it was to a lesser extent. I felt like it was more taking what the defense was giving him in Minnesota compared to what we saw in Carolina, where week 2, he had a lead that he was playing with. Week 2, he had a lead. Week 3, he's trying to play from behind, but not make that back-breaking mistake. And you see in the film when he's looking down the field, he looks down the field and then panics and throws to the other side. He throws to his check down. That's what led to the pick six. That's what led to, I believe it was to Charlie Warner to the right side. He throws it out to his right and doesn't see a linebacker's right there on top of him, and it leads to a pretty significant loss. I think it's like a 6-yard loss or something on one play. He's guessing a little bit, and that makes me very worried. It's really worrisome. I mean, his last 2 games, I don't think he played poorly in week 2. I don't think he played poorly at all, but through his last 2 weeks, he's completing 54% of his passes. 307 yards, great, but no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. It's not good. And the other worrisome thing is right here. His pass blocking is great. It's just fine. You see it is right up there on the top right. He's up there with the Bills, the Cardinals, the Broncos are way out there. He's in the good quadrant right there. It just tells me he's being apprehensive in the backfield. It tells me he's got some problems, and I think a lot of it has to do with his communication. And the team's doing some things to address that fact, or they're trying to. But you see this here. I tweeted this earlier this week on a Monday or on Sunday. I can't even remember. It'll tell you literally in September 22nd, so yesterday. His explosive pass rate, the deep pass rate in the NFL right now, 4%. It's 4%. He's not throwing the ball down the field. The numbers aren't good. You can see from this, it says he's struggling with the explosive offense. He's 1 of 7 with an interception on 15-yard passes down the field. He's 1 of 17. He's completed just 1 pass down the field. And look at what the numbers were last year. That's what kind of got a lot of fans excited, super excited about what this offense could look like. Second-year play caller was Zach Robinson, young quarterback with a beautiful arm, throws a great football. You got Darnell Mooney and Ray McLeod and Drake London and Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson. The weapons are there. And you saw the flashes of that last season. 316 yards on 15-plus yard air attempts. Second most in the NFL. Second most. I mean, we're talking about numbers that compared to MVP level players. He was on par with guys like Josh Allen. He was doing all these. And look, I'm not down on Michael Penix. Let me be very clear on the fact that I'm not being down on Michael Penix. I think he can be better, and I think the team can support him more. That's really what it comes down to. This team's got to do better to support him, and I think Zach Robinson can do things better to support his quarterback. Because you talk about confidence. We can talk about confidence. This is a quote that he had. Here, let me see if I can pull this in here. Confidence is a problem for young quarterbacks, just in the NFL in general. I mean, these are guys who they need to get support. They need to have folks come in and believe in them. They need to have people who give them opportunities. And these negative moments are going to happen. It's how they respond to these negative moments that really defines who they are. Every quarterback does this. Every quarterback goes through these problems. And this is what quarterback Michael Penix had to say on execution. He says, some of it's definitely me. Some of it. The defense, they had good looks, and they just gave a good look. And I wasn't prepared for it, which I have to be. But at the end of the day, I've got to make those plays. I've got to find my guy that's open. But I don't know. It was tough. We just got to execute better as a whole. I don't think he's getting the support that he needs right now. He's a young quarterback who's trying to come and develop in this league. He's trying to. And I think he has all of the ability in the world to get there. And you can talk about mechanical issues and other things that are going wrong with him. But I think he's going to come back. I think he's still got moxie. He's still that guy. And Morris talked about it on Monday, said that it was the most down that he's seen his quarterback. Yeah. No, he effectively went out and lost his team a game. That's just what happens. You're the quarterback. You're blamed for these things, fair or unfair. But the thing that gets me confidence in Michael Penix and where his head is actually that he came in on Monday and he was right back to being that guy. That's a captain. That's a guy who's going to lead your team. It's a guy who gives me confidence that he is the guy mentally to take this team and still lead this team. The way he responds. And I think Sunday is going to be very telling in that fact. But this guy has the ability, and I think this team still has the talent. We can all agree that the talent is on this Falcons team right now. They have talent. I think the quarterback is going to improve. I think all of these things it happens in the NFL. This game is hard. This game's really hard. And if you judge any quarterback, damn near any quarterback, on what they were after 6 starts, and maybe you say that's who they're going to be as a pro, I think you're doing a disservice to those teams. You're doing a disservice to those players. You can probably pull any Hall of Fame quarterback and see the exact same thing. Peyton Manning, I think he was 1-5 over his first 6 games. I think he threw, a dozen interceptions or something over his first 6 games. That guy became known as the sheriff and one of the greatest quarterbacks ever to put on a helmet. This is normal in the NFL. Ebbs and flows are to be expected. And if you go back to one of my earlier videos, that is what I said. That was something that I pounded the table on. I said it on my radio show on Sports Radio 92.9 The Game. I've said it a long time that this team needs to be ready to ride the wave of a young quarterback. It's the reality of having a young player. That's okay. It's okay. It may not be okay for the staff who needs him to be at a high level, who needs him to be an elite quarterback. We'll see what the repercussions are of it, but we've already started to see it. But what can you do to help build this guy's confidence? I don't think Zach Robinson did a good enough job. Plain and simple. I don't think you ran the ball enough. I mean, look, I have a hard time critiquing play callers in the NFL. These are guys who know more about the game of football than most anybody, myself included, anybody who's watching this video. They've probably forgotten more than we know, or we will ever know. It's just a reality. These guys do this for a living, and they're at the highest level of this craft. But at the same time, why is Tyler Algier getting 1 carry in this game? It's a 10-0 deficit at halftime. Why didn't Bijan Robinson get featured in this game? You're facing one of the worst rush defenses in the NFL, and you didn't give the ball to your best player enough. That's a guy who needs to be touching the ball 20, 25 times. And I understand game flow and everything else. It dictates. It was weird the way it kind of all fell out of whack by the end of the game, but it's not good enough. It's not good enough. You have one of the best players in football, somebody who Raheem Morris himself says is the best player in football, and you only gave him the ball, 12 times in this game? I have a hard time believing that makes any sense to me. And ultimately, this team is too up and down. There's too much fluctuation. There's too many bad moments here and good moments there. To some level, it's expected with a young team. You've got a lot of young defenders. You've got a young quarterback. But that's where coaching needs to elevate. That's where coaching needs to take this team and kind of bring it in. Because this team is not as good as the team we saw in Minnesota. And I don't think it's as bad as the team that we saw in Carolina. The truth is probably somewhere in between. But now we're going to find out what they're made of. Raheem Morris can say all the right things. Drake London can say all the right things. And Jesse Bates and all these other guys can say the right things. They have all summer, and they did after the loss. And they will, I'm sure, tomorrow when we talk to them at Flowery Branch. But now you got to prove it. You got the Commanders coming to town on Sunday. That's a team that's 2-1. They just played an NFC Championship game. And then you got, the Bills. You got the 49ers. It doesn't get easier. It does not get any easier. In fact, it actually gets a lot harder. It's going to get a lot harder. And we're going to find out what this team is made of. But as far as what moves that this team made, and I see you guys are dropping some comments and questions and everything else, I'm going to start going through those in just a second here. I'm just kind of on my soapbox here. But as far as what moves can the team make as of now to kind of elevate this team and really get Michael Penix back on track, because that's your number one thing, is get Michael Penix going. Raheem Morris said it's a lot of stress on a young quarterback, but without a doubt, quote, without a doubt, we'll do those things going forward to help him out. So what are those things? First things first, Zach Robinson, he moves to the sideline. You can feel the frustration hitting a boiling point there with Zach Robinson. I don't think he's necessarily at the fireable level yet. It's going to get closer and closer, especially with a head coach and a front office that are feeling the heat to reach the postseason. That you can't afford to give away games. And this was really one of my biggest concerns coming into the season. What if they start slow? 1-2 feels pretty slow, especially with these these three teams who are going to be coming in here between the bye week. But the frustration is very high. He's going to be moving down to the sideline. And this feels as much as a help for him to get down and kind of get ingrained with the offense and kind of be among his players as much as it is assistance for Michael Penix on the sideline. It's about getting on the same page and finding a gear for this offense, because you have to match the production of the defense. You have to do it. And how fast the offense can get going, if at all, is going to dictate the success of this team in 2025 and whether or not they make the playoffs or hell, have a winning record. I mean, that's really going to be the thing that dictates everything. And the other move that they make, as far as the staff is concerned, is they fire Ike Hilliard. TJ Yates, the passing game coordinator, he's going to come in and he's going to assume that role. It was actually a role that he had with the Arthur Smith era. And Josh Kendall of The Athletic, he said basically, quote, "The move was strictly performance-based, according to a team source. No Atlanta wide receiver has caught a touchdown pass this season, and the group was out of sync with Michael Penix all day on Sunday." And that's, look, 2025, it's been a struggle for the wide receivers. They have not been good. They've also largely been unhealthy, but they haven't been on the same page as their quarterback. And that goes all the way down. I mean, you look at what happened with Cordero Hodge when he comes in, a guy who's not necessarily expecting to be in that situation, but if he gets his head turned around, we're talking about potentially Michael Penix leading a game-winning drive against the Buccaneers. I mean, he led a game-tying drive, and his teammates let him down. Speaking of people who are letting down a young quarterback. And Drake London, Darnell Mooney looks a step slow. Raheem Morris said that that he is 100% healthy and ready to go, but he was ineffective again on Sunday, and I was surprised, really. He's just been a non-factor. And I think a lot of that has to do with why they made this decision. But in 2024, Hilliard was fantastic, or at least his players were. I mean, Drake London had his best season as a pro. He had set career highs in receptions and in yards and in receiving touchdowns. He was one of 3 Falcons ever to have 100 receptions, 1,200 yards, and 9 touchdowns in just one season. Darnell Mooney, Ray McLeod, they come in here, they have career years. Mooney barely misses out on the career high, second career 1,000-yard season, but he set career highs in touchdowns and average yards per reception. And McLeod, he set career highs in receptions, yards, and was the team's 3rd leading receiver. This guy goes off for 686 yards, guys. And look, you make the move, and that's what they're going to do with it. But ultimately, too, kicking is still a problem. You cut Younghoe Koo because you thought you had a guy in Parker Romo. He goes out, makes 5 out of 5 kicks. And then what happens. He misses both of his kicks. Ben Sauls, he was signed today. That was the news. That's the work that the team is doing right now to remedy a problem. There's a chance that Parker Romo's not the guy anymore. We'll see. They're going to have a kicking competition. And Ben Sauls actually, in a positive note, I put out a piece on him. You can go check it out at GChapATL. I tweeted it out there. You can also head over to si.com/NFL/Falcons. It's just Falcons on SI on Google. You can look at some of the things that I said about Ben Sauls, and I pulled some of his numbers. And he's a pretty solid long-range kicker. He's a 3rd-team All-ACC kicker from Pittsburgh. Converts 87% of his field goals. But, I mean, this guy was a stud his last year. 6 of those 21 makes came from 50-plus yards. He tied a school record with 58 yards. 58 yards, made all 44 of his kicks. That's consistent. That's solid. And that's what you want to see from your kicker. And maybe he wins this job. Maybe he doesn't. He was with the Steelers over the offseason. And, I mean, they have one of the best long-range kickers in the NFL in Boswell. And I would have been very surprised if they ended up moving on from him in favor of Ben Sauls. But Ben Sauls is an All-ACC kicker. He had a great end to his career, and I think he has a chance to land somewhere, even if it's not here. But he's on the practice squad. Younghoe Koo also, he signs with the New York Giants. Graham Gano is dealing with a soft tissue issue in his leg that's flared up on Sunday. But maybe Younghoe Koo finds a new career. He gets a second chance, and maybe he can return to some of the dominance that we saw from him early in his career. But maybe it's Ben Saul's job. Maybe it's going to be Parker Romo, but they're going to have a kicking battle. But those are my 3 things that the team's done this week so far. We'll see if they make any other moves, but it was tough. It was really tough. On the other side, I'm going to answer some of your questions here now. I see we've got a whole bunch of questions and comments and everything else. So I'm going to try to go through some of these. Very excited. I've got well over 100 folks, 150 people almost in the stream. Welcome. My name is Garrett Chapman. This is the Falcons Podcast with Garrett Chapman. We broadcast on YouTube, on Facebook, on Spotify, everywhere. So I appreciate all of you for jumping in here. If you got a comment, a question, anything else, make sure to drop it into the comments, and I'm going to try to get to those here right now. And then again, at the end of the show, but I'm going to get to some of these positives here in just a moment. But if you are watching on Twitter, make sure to hit a like, make sure to repost. I'd love to share this and kind of bring this Falcons coverage to a lot more people. If you're on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button, or on Spotify if you're listening after the fact. Appreciate all of you for jumping in here, even if it's not the best of news. It wasn't a great performance on Sunday in week 3, but still early in the season, still plenty of time to turn things around. Tabro, what's up, my man? He says, Tabro says, I don't care what they need to do. Just get it together. Rise up. He's over there on YouTube. Dantes Jackson, always great to see you, my man. He normally does his the red and black hearts, but this time he ends up with an angry face. I feel your pain there, Tez. And just as a reminder here, this is something that pops up every week, and it's always a great time to remind you. Stars, those are the number one way to support all Falcons content and help us bring you more and more of the content that you love. So if you're over on YouTube, make sure to hit us up there, and I very much appreciate it. Well, and if you have a comment, and you give us a stars comment, and we will push it right up to the top. If you have one of those, I will always take those immediately. So if you have something that you really want to say, a question that you really want to get answered, make sure to do that. But otherwise, I'm going to try to go through some of these other comments. Chris Norris, he comes in and says, I've never seen an NFL team look that bad. I've been watching Falcons football for 20 years, and I've never seen anything like that. That's saying something. I mean, this is a team who looked about as bad as they have looked. And it's as much the way that the Falcons looked, Chris. And I think you're feeling this, and I think I felt it too. I think every Falcons fan and person who covers this team and everything else, they felt it as well. It's as bad as the Falcons looked, and it's the opponent that they were playing. I mean, you look at I don't know what his record is overall. I think he has 7 total wins over 3 seasons. Bryce Young, 3 of those have come against the Atlanta Falcons. And sometimes a guy just has your number. I wouldn't say it was Bryce Young who did anything really in this game. He's not the reason that this team, the Panthers, won the game. I think it's just general woes on offense, on the Falcons offense. And then they ran the ball pretty effectively in this game. But no, it was about as frustrating a football game that I can remember. All right. We're going to keep on rolling through. Dom Mayer over on Facebook. I feel like I have a sneeze coming, but it's not fully coming. Excuse me. Understand the concern about the offense and that Penix finally had one of those wild rookie games, but am I wrong to think things could get better, though Zach has been underwhelming with vanilla play calling? DeMayer, thank you for your question. Yeah, no, I mean, that was one of the things that I was kind of rolling through with this. It's the fact that it's still early in the season. We're still at a point where things can turn around. Things can absolutely turn around. Michael Penix has made his third start. And actually, this kind of gets us into this other thing. And DeMayer, I'm going to continue answering your question. I just see this one as the one right up underneath it. Jack 49 says, I know now Penix Jr. is the problem. No, he's not. He's a young quarterback. Jock 49. He's a young quarterback. He's making his 6th start. These are things that happen. These are things that are just part of the natural progression of going through this league. Teams adjust to you. Teams adjust. They saw 3 games of film where he wants to throw it deep. They got a too high shell safety. How do you respond? He didn't respond well. And I think now it's up to the coaching staff to kind of get him right and help figure it out. And it's up to him too to elevate his game and find a way to respond. This is what happens in every sport. Every sport does this. You want to talk baseball? Michael Harris, when he had his great start to his rookie season, he wins rookie of the year, and he comes back around and he does what he does. Struggles. Austin Riley did it. The only person who really didn't do it was Ronald Acuna, and that's because Ronald Acuna is an alien. Even he had some struggles in 2022 coming off of the knee injury. These things happen. It happens. These guys are also paid a lot of money on the other side too. They want to come in here and figure out what you're doing well, and they want to use it against you. It's what they do. It's what they do. This is why these guys are the best in the game. But no, Penix is not the problem. I think it's a combination of a lot of factors, and I think you have a young quarterback that you're putting a lot on. It's a lot of pressure for a young man to do, and that's somebody who doesn't have any NFL experience, hardly any NFL experience, and you're trying to ask him to basically will you through everything else. Demayer says, also, I read that Zach was on the field last year calling offense. Is that true? No, he was actually up in the press box, but before last season, he was always up. He was never in the coach's box. So last season, he was in the coach's box. This season, so far, he's been in the coaching box. But before that, he was always on the field. So it was an unfamiliar place for him. So going back to his time with the Rams, he wasn't a play caller then, but he was on the field. And he was interacting with players. And maybe we'll see if that's ultimately where he's most comfortable. Time will tell. We shall see. Stephen B says, you really know it's football season when the Falcons offensive coordinator is catching heat. Well, yeah, that's probably fair. That's probably fair. And Falcons offensive coordinators are notorious for getting a lot of pressure. Even Kyle Shanahan got a lot of pressure. And I'm not comparing anybody else to Kyle Shanahan. I'm saying in 2015, the first year of Dan Quinn and everybody else here in the city, people wanted to fire Kyle Shanahan. They wanted to move on. They wanted to find somebody else. And Dirk Cutter got that kind of pressure. And Steve Sarkisian got that pressure. Arthur Smith was his own play caller, so I guess you could say he was getting pressure from the beginning, but that's a different thing entirely. But yeah, I hear what you're saying, Stephen B. Jack Piazzi, excuse me. He says Penix isn't the problem. I agree. He's not the problem. He's just young, and you have to support him. You have to find ways to elevate his game and find something that works for him. He isn't the problem. We're going to keep on going through. Jack Piazzi says, got to give our quarterback in his sixth start maybe 5 to 10 seconds to read his keys, not sprint to the line every play after the call comes in late and then trying to get a dummy motion in. Good thing I read the whole thing there. Yeah, I was saying 5 to 10 seconds. You're not going to have 5 to 10 seconds in the NFL just in general as after a play is snapped, but I now understand that look, the play calls have to be faster. And Matt Ryan actually talked about this in his podcast last week. So it was about this time last week, maybe it was Wednesday, Thursday of last week. And he basically said it's more important to be decisive than it is to be right? That is an important thing in the NFL. Generally speaking, if you're prepared, you're going to be more often right than wrong. But if you're not decisive, it doesn't matter if you're right or if you're wrong. It doesn't come in time and you're not able to and you're putting your team in a bad position. I think ultimately the Falcons have been putting themselves in a bad position. And on last 2 weeks ago against the Vikings, Raheem Morris blamed the noise. The week before that, week after that, so last week, he talks about the headsets going out. And he's not blaming the headsets. He's not blaming the noise as much as it is. It's just one of the reasons why they're having some miscommunications. And one of the reasons why they're going to now bring Michael Penix down to the side, bring Zach Robinson down to the sideline for Michael Penix. We'll see if it works. Demir says on that first kick, it seemed like the wind caught the first field goal or if it was Romo missing. He said he kicked the ball on the outside of the football when we talked to him afterwards, and it spun the football out in a weird way, and that's why it spun like that. That wasn't wind. It was a perfectly calm day. It was not wind, Demir. Keep on rolling through. I see some people were talking about Michael Penix here. We'll keep on rolling through. And again, if you have comments that you want to jump right to the top, then I'm more than happy to do that. You just got to put a star on it, and I will get you through here. So Clay Melton says, it makes no sense to me that we had no trouble getting in plays last season, but somehow we do now. I don't believe the issue is what Raheem says it is. I don't know how much of an issue it was last year. I don't think it really was, but you also had a veteran quarterback for most of the season. I mean, for all of the shortcomings that Kirk Cousins had at the end of last year, he's still a veteran quarterback. And then the deficiencies from the Achilles injury and everything else physically at the beginning of the season. He's still a guy who's played in this league for a decade, and you're able to do things a little bit better with a veteran quarterback under center than you are somebody who's made 3, 4, 5, 6 starts. I mean, that's just a reality here. You need to give him a little bit more time, and it becomes more glaring when you have a younger guy who isn't as experienced with these types of situations. So it wasn't as much an issue last year, I'd say, because you had a veteran quarterback under center. Now, that's not a reason to go back to the veteran quarterback. I'm not trying to suggest that at all. I'm just saying these are some of the growing pains that you have to go through with a young quarterback. Bruce Taylor says the Falcons will lose the next 2 games in blank. He says blank will clean house. Sorry, but Raheem Morris is not good as head coach. I've never seen a Falcons team look this lost. Penix looks bored as fuck. I don't think that Penix looks bored. I completely disagree with that. I also, apologies for the cuss. I see the AF, and that's just what I said. So apologies for that one. But no, even if you lose the next 2 games, they're not cleaning house. You're going to go into the bye week. Or actually, no, I believe you're going to hit the week 5 is the bye week. So you're not going to do it after the bye week, right? So you're going to come out of it. If you lose to the Commanders, you'll be 1-3. Then you go to the bye, and then you hit the Bills, and then you hit the 49ers, right? I don't think that they're going to clean house this early in the season. That's just not something that they're going to do. They're going to give it an opportunity. There might be some pressure, maybe if Penix comes out and he still looks bad. There's a chance that you see them go back to Kirk Cousins. I don't think that that's a popular decision. I'm just trying to say that might be something that they would consider in a bye week early in a season and see if you can get them back on track. Because you're looking at a desperate coach. You're looking at a desperate front office to get this situation corralled. If they lose the next 2 games, you'd be 1-4. It'd be really bad start to the season, and I don't think that they're cleaning house necessarily, but we'll see. I don't think that's necessarily going to be what happens. Jock49 keeps coming in here with some other stuff. He's trying to rage bait. Yeah, I see that. So Stephen B comes in and he says, is Algier really the elite? I don't know what that is. Backup running back that some claim. Yes, he is an elite backup running back. He is an elite backup running back, Stephen B. He's somebody who's going to come in here and give you something physically that not a lot of running backs can do. He may not have that explosiveness that a lot of guys like. Maybe, I mean, if you were watching Monday Night Football, you saw David Montgomery come in and give you a next gear, right? And it's something that Jahmyr Gibbs doesn't really give you. It's very similar with this. Maybe it's just, I'd say Tyler Algier is more physical, and he's not as home run type. That's just my 2 cents on what Tyler Algier is. But yeah, no, I still think he's an elite running back. He's somebody who gave you 1,000 yards as a rookie, right? You don't just come into this league and get 1,000 yards as a running back for nothing. That shows that you have top end ability, that you can be a bell cow. Yes. So yes, Tyler Algier is a really top end back, and he's a strong player. Clay Melton comes back in and says, I just have trouble blaming Zach when you see all the open receivers and miss passes, not a few, a lot. Yes, Zach needs to improve, but if your quarterback is that inaccurate, it doesn't matter. Clay, I'll say it again. I think it's a myriad of problems that are facing the Falcons right now. I think this team has a lot of issues. I think the fundamentals of Michael Penix have struggled. I think that they became more glaring in that loss on Sunday because I think he was just trying to force things a little bit too much. That's just where he found himself. I don't think it is as bad as what we saw on Sunday. I think that was just the way it all flared up. And look, maybe the termination of Ike is what they need. I don't necessarily think that's what it is. I think he's more of a scapegoat than he is anything else. But time will tell on that one. Yeah, Jack Piazzi says the broadcast said all the wide receivers covered downfield, just nowhere to go the entire game. They struggled getting the ball down the field. They struggled, really, really struggled. It looks like Jack and Clay are going back and forth, so I'm going to keep on rolling through. Derek Hart comes in. He says, I have a confession, Garrett. I was wrong. I said we were going to be 3-1 after the Washington game. I was totally 100% wrong. I apologize. Hopefully this will be 2-2 in the name of Jesus. Yes, Derek. I hope that you're right. I hope that they can come out and be 2-2. And Derek, you and me both, man. I mean, look, I didn't think that we would be 3-1. That's not where I stood. I think I firmly said I was in that camp of being 2-2, and I think that would have been a really good spot to be in. But I appreciate you, my man, Derek. Derek's he's been sticking with us here from the beginning of this podcast, and I really appreciate you. Edwidge Bon Macho, Tampa will destroy you guys again. Thank you, my man. I think you came in earlier. I think that's where we saw you, but appreciate you jumping in and supporting the podcast. But we're going to keep on rolling through. I'm going to scroll down a little bit. I still see some folks are kind of going back and forth. T Green, he says, keep pounding. Falcons going 1-11. Y'all season over. No, it's not. We're we're going to keep on rolling through. We got another troll here coming in. I appreciate you. I appreciate you supporting the podcast and giving us some views. Keep on rolling through. All right. Trevor Gilmore. So he comes in here on Twitter. He says, why is Bijan 8 yards behind the line? He missed 2 big touchdown opportunities because he was so far back and made an early cut. Zach Robinson's scheme had Penix playing flat-footed. It's pretty standard for running backs to be about 7 yards behind the line of scrimmage, 7-8 yards. That's not entirely uncommon. That's a schematic thing. I see you cite Dan Orlovsky talking about it. I don't know what it is you're referring to necessarily with Dan Orlovsky. I'll go check that out. I'm more than happy to. I think that Dan Orlovsky is a very smart person. He knows a lot more about football than most any of us. I mean, he's a guy who played in the league for a few years, and he does a great job over there on ESPN. And I'd love to go check that out. So Trevor, if you have this, if you can cite that, please pull it up to me, and send it my way. I'd be more than happy to check that out. Keep on rolling through. I see a lot of people are still going back and forth. All right. So let's get into some of these positive things. So if you have some other comments, you have things that you really want to see, make sure to drop a star onto it and charge that comment, and maybe we'll get it up in here and we'll get in here. But if you're a Panthers fan or a Bucks fan or whatever else, I appreciate the engagement, appreciate the comments, appreciate the views. Just coming out here and supporting a Falcons podcast. This really shows where your heart is, and we really appreciate it. So some other reactions here from this game. It's just the fact that the defense is continuing to shine, right? This defense is still very good, much better than I expected it to be coming into the season. You have a very young unit. You have young players. I mean, you look at what a lot of the key role players that you're looking at with this team are. I think it was 8 of them on this defense that have an average age of 22 and a half years old. Like this is not an old team. You've got some veterans in big places like Jesse Bates and AJ Terrell and Leonard Floyd, Caden Ellis, Divine Diablo, guys like that. But I mean, there are a lot of young players, and you see what this team has been able to do. And they're going to get credited with giving up 30 points on Sunday. And I think it's ridiculous. I mean, one of them was a pick 6, and they kind of got screwed later in this game just with starting field position for the Panthers. And that's how you get to the lopsided score, because that game was not as lopsided because the Falcons actually ended up outgaining the Panthers. So it's just struggles from the Falcons side. And I don't think that the Panthers did a lot of crazy things to win that game. I said the Falcons were the better team in week 1. I said the Falcons were the better team in week 2. I can't say that in week 3, but they did outgain them. They did pick up more first downs. They were more efficient on third down. And I mean, you can point to a lot of the defensive, the good things that this defense did as a reason that the Falcons had a chance to win this game. It was 10-0 in halftime. It's just your offense couldn't give you anything, but they're credited giving up 30 points. And the reality is you lost badly. And that's the reality of the situation, but the defense still ranks 13th in league in scoring. They're still second in yards allowed, 227 per game. That's right about what the Panthers gave you in this game. They're 5th in EPA per play allowed, 5th in EPA per pass, 6th in team sack rate, 8th in pressure rate. I mean, the 227, as far as the total defense is concerned, the yards per game, it's the second fewest in the NFL, but it's also the second lowest yards per game average allowed through 3 games of a season in Falcons history, going back to 1977, excuse me. This defense is really good, and I think this defense is going to continue to get better. It's going to get tested in a way that we haven't seen yet. The 2 of the best offenses in the country, in all the NFL, are going to be coming in on Sunday. Now, Jaden Daniels and his status it remains unclear. Terry McLaurin might be shelved in this game, but this defense has looked ready. And AJ Terrell, I think it's worth noting. There is no real update here on AJ Terrell. We weren't able to talk to Raheem Morris on Tuesday. He told us that we would know more later in the week when we asked him on Monday. But D. Alford does play well, albeit against a pretty lackluster passing attack from the Carolina Panthers. CJ Henderson, in other news, was released by the team. I put out a piece on that. You can go check that out, Falcons on SI. But no, this defense is playing at a really high level. And the defense gives me confidence that this team is going to get back on track, because it is the underbelly of this schedule comes in the second half. That's why you look at a lot of these guys who are saying, I see some Panthers fans in here trying to jump in here and say you're going to 6-11 or whatever. It's never as bad as it looked, and it's never quite as good. Like I said before, it's somewhere in between. And this Falcons team, I think, is going to be in pretty decent shape. They just have to figure some things out, and all of that will come. I don't know what YW means. He says YW Garrett. I don't know what that means. It's fine. Appreciate you supporting the podcast, T Green. Yeah, you're whoever you are on YouTube. I appreciate you. You're giving us a view, and I do appreciate it. Tony Bradley over on Facebook, and I'm gonna take your questions for the rest of the podcast. Just as you have them, I'll try to get to as many as I can here. Tony Bradley on Facebook, he says, if Atlanta loses trust, Arthur will fire Morris and the staff. Yeah, no, that's what's going to happen eventually. If they continue to lose games and they continue to fall off, jobs are going to be lost. You already seen the first guy get fired. There's a chance that he's not the last. I mean, that's a reality in this league. I mean, these guys are hired to be fired. They understand what the situation is, and they're paid to win football games. And right now, they're not winning football games. You had a great game in week 2, but you got to get back to that. Is that the reality, or is what we saw in week 3 the reality? Is the way that this team started in week 1 the reality, or is what happened in the middle the reality against the Buccaneers? There's too many ebbs and flows. You need to see a little bit more consistency. Even in that week 2 win, it was the defense who kind of shined for you. That's what did everything. You had seriously bad red zone offense in that game. You do run the ball for 200 plus yards, but not really doing much of the passing attack. So it's going to take time, and a lot of these things are going to come together, but we don't have a full look of what this Falcons team is yet. And hopefully that comes in time. Tony Bradley says on Facebook, cannot lose against Quinn and Mariota. That would be the nail in the coffin, in my opinion. If this team loses, and let's be clear about this, Marcus Mariota is not the starter as of now. Jaden Daniels is still considered to be day-to-day for the Commanders. And if he comes in here, I'm expecting him to play. He didn't play last week against the Raiders. I have reason to believe that he's going to be the starting quarterback. Things can change between now and the end of the week. That's something that we're going to keep an eye on and just monitor that and Terry McLaurin and his status. But if you lose to Dan Quinn and Marcus Mariota, the guy who coached you and you fired, and the guy who you benched for Desmond Ridder just a few years later, then that would be ugly. That would be very ugly. So Tony, to your point, yeah, that would be kind of a bad situation. The MD20 says, hopefully with Robinson being on the sideline, Penix can have time to get to the line and call checks, ID the mic, and actually see what the defense is doing. I hope so. I think it's just as important. I think it's going to be important for Zach Robinson and Michael Penix to be able to talk one-on-one and be able to look each other in the face during the game and talk to each other. And I think that kind of thing is valuable. And that's something that I think is going to help a young quarterback. And he can get eyes in the sky, and they can give him some feedback on what they're seeing. And it's different for every coordinator. I mean, different guys do different things, and different things work for different players. And we'll see if this ends up working for the young quarterback. It better. I don't see a lot more manipulation and things that this team, the staff can do to kind of make it work, but they need this to work. It's got to work. So far it hasn't, and maybe this change is what it is what it needs. Antonio Forte, talk is cheap. I think you're responding to T Green. Yeah, so I'm going to continue to go through. T Green's given us a lot of support. Appreciate you, man. Yes. Yeah, so I think that's pretty much it. So so I'd say like we've got a lot of Panthers fans jumping in here. Good for you guys. Good win for the Panthers. Great win for you guys, and we'll see if that means anything for them moving forward. Ultimately, this is just another stepping stone. It could just be another hurdle for the Falcons. It could be a sign of things to come for the Falcons, and time will tell. Time will ultimately tell. But we'll see what happens on Sunday. I mean, the Commanders and the Bills and the bye week and everything else. I mean, we got to see this team get better, and it better improve in a hurry. Just because this team is going to be feeling the pressure here coming in over the next couple of weeks. But big reminder, coming up on Wednesday, we've got Scott and Nick. They're going to be live with you at 8:30 in the morning. If there's content you want to see on this channel, just in general, make sure to drop it into the comments. Make sure to let me know. or hit me up on Twitter at GChapATL. That's the best way to get in touch with me. But we will be back on Thursday at 6 o'clock with our pod as we start looking ahead to next week. We'll have more updates on Jaden Daniels, and I'll be able to talk to you about everything that I have heard up there at Flowery Branch when I go up there tomorrow. We got a very busy day on Wednesday. We're talking to Jeff Ulbrich. We're talking to Zach Robinson. We're talking to Raheem. We're talking to Michael Penix. We're talking to everybody. But make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast. Make sure to give me a follow at GChapATL on Twitter just to stay up to date on all the content that we have coming out. It's a big news day yesterday. It's going to be a big news day again tomorrow. But you can also head over to Falcons on SI. Just Google it. You can check it out. SI.com/NFL/Falcons and get your fix there too. My name is Garrett Chapman for Falcons on SI. I'll see you all very soon. But until next time, be kind to another. Talk soon. Go Falcons.